Hey everyone, it's Deb Putnoy here in the Drawing Lab, and I am really excited to be here today. I am broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts. Excuse me, and it's a rainy morning here, but I'm really excited to get on here and talk to you a little bit about one of my favorite subjects. And we're still going through the ABCs of drawing, which we're now up to R, which you can see here it says rework. But I'm actually going to talk about reflection, which is also art, and it relates to reworking something. But I think I've said this before. I've written these so many times, these rules, and I wrote these a while ago. And when I was thinking about it the other day, I really thought reworking is essential, but it really starts with this process of reflection. And that's really what I want to talk to you about today, is taking the time to do some reflection. So if you can see behind me, let me see if I can get, these are elements of, or we're in the Drawing Lab in Boston, and I moved over this sign because it says observe and reflect. And it's probably one of the bigger signs that I have in the Drawing Lab. And I believe with my whole heart that reflection and looking and slowing down is a core aspect of drawing and really our lives. If we take drawing as kind of like a way to live, just like if we think about yoga and our practice, like when you think of drawing as a practice and you think about the different stages of drawing, an essential part of that is also reflecting and looking and slowing down. So I have a little thing here that I talk about a lot in my teaching. I wrote it about in my book. Let me see, let me get it the right way, the drawing mind here. But I teach people about thinking about this kind of mnemonic or using draw as a way to think about reflecting. So the first thing we do is draw or create or make our work. The second part of that is to reflect on our work. So if you think about taking a piece that you feel like is done, and you know, sometimes I talk about like it's not about the end product and it's about process, but say you've done a piece of, you've done a drawing, or you've done a piece of artwork, or you've done a piece of writing, I guess this could apply to, but let's talk about drawing for right now. You've done a drawing, and instead of just rushing on to your next thing that you're doing, to take the time to really look. And when I was in art school at the museum school in Boston, we had one of my favorite times, they're called crits, which in art school, that's what they're called. And you would sit with your class or your group or your friends, and you would look at work and share what you saw while looking at the work. It wasn't a judgment time. It wasn't like, oh, that's really bad or that's really good. It was really about a time to slow down, look at what was in front of you, look at the range. Sometimes people put a bunch of their work up. Sometimes it would be one piece. And you would just say, like, what is happening with my eyes? What am I noticing? What am I seeing? Let me get the reflection because I'm seeing a lot of reflection here. But what am I seeing as I'm looking? And if you're a teacher in schools, in a classroom, this is essential for your students too. I spend a lot of times when I go into classrooms doing the drawings with kids, but then we spend a good 10 to 15 minutes at the end of any work, putting those sketchbooks down and then looking and reflecting at what's in front of us. So it's really about slowing down and spending time sharing about what is happening in our eyes. Like, what are we seeing? What are you seeing when you look at your own work? What aspects kind of work? What, what marks are working for you? So that's a time when I think about reflecting, and this is kind of a way to think about how you can think about reflection and reworking, but to reflect, to look, to slow down. I always say I had one of my best looking experiences, and this isn't with someone else, it wasn't with my work, but I went into a museum in New York, and we were given, this was like an art history assignment, and it sticks with me to this day. We had to look at one piece of art for an hour, and we had three choices, and I chose to look at a Mondrian for an hour. And if you don't know who Mondrian is, you can look up his work. It's all grid and very primary colors, very interesting. But it's to look at it for an hour, and we're supposed to just free write everything that we saw for an hour about the piece that we were looking at. Things start to happen when you look really closely over time. So if you give yourself the time, if you have a journal and you're by yourself, you could just write I notice this, I see that this element here is making this happen over here. Anything that you see and that affects your vision of like the process of looking, just write about it. Just free write. Don't worry about the grammar. Don't worry about punctuation. Just get your ideas out and you can just have it as your reflection of what you're looking at in your work. And then you can start to ask some questions like, okay, like what's happening? Like when I'm doing this right here, what's happening? So as a way to reflect, ask questions. So if you're alone, you can ask those questions of, I see over here, this is happening. What would happen if I do this? And it's also part of wondering, but really asking questions of yourself, of the people that you're looking with. If you're with a group of kids, like what happens if you didn't do really dark marks, but you made really light marks over here, or whatever, if you're drawing a music, if we're doing that, what would happen if, using that as a way to get elicit for yourself or for a group of wondering. So it's really about cultivating cultivating this way of thinking about your work and not only just rushing through, but taking the time to cultivate awareness and reflection. And so like I said, I think we take so much time doing that the reflection sometimes is harder, even for artists. I know that as I've gotten into my work and shown, I don't always take the time I need to sit down in a chair and look at my work and ask myself questions about well, what would happen if I rework this or if I did this? So asking and wondering. So asking kind of provokes the questions, and then wonder is okay, if I did do that, maybe this would happen. Or I wonder what would happen if. So I want you to start to think about while we're going through the ABCs, and as I said, I had it as rework, but reflection allows you then to think about, okay, how am I going to rework this? Okay, so I'm going to come on here and show you how I rework a piece. But what do you think about when you look, and then how you rework that piece? And if you're with kids, it's a really great way to have them understand that with drawing and with writing and with a lot of parts of our lives, it's you do something, and then if you reflect back on that experience and ask yourself questions, then the next time you do it, you might do it differently, or you can rework it in a different way. So it's really about building kind of a self-reflection awareness skill for ourselves, for the kids that we teach, for people in our family, to take the time to look carefully and to slow down. So the reflection process really gives us a time to say it's okay to take the time to look and to reflect. So as you can see, let me see, it's observe and reflect. Central parts of the drawing lab is to do the work. And like I said, I'm very much about process and open-ended thinking and helping you kind of understand that drawing isn't about perfection and doing things a certain way. It's really about this open-ended kind of exploration of our world. That drawing is essential to all aspects. If you walk around for a day, you can see how drawing is everywhere. Our new shoes were designed and patents for different things. I mean, drawing is a central core human way that we express and communicate. And so I want to get you comfortable with that process. And part of that is just slowing down after you've drawn something and kind of asking yourself questions and thinking about, what's this all about and what's happening and what materials worth. I have a whole range of materials here, what would happen if, asking those questions. So keeping that questioning mind, that reflective mind, I think is a key thing for artists, for people that are delving into their creativity. And I just want to jump on here today so you can get through the ABCs of drawing. So our next thing, and it kind of goes to what we were talking to today, is slowing down. And I'm going to give you some tips on how to slow down in the drawing process, and what happens when you do that for yourself and what happens in a classroom. I've seen amazing things happen with kids in classrooms when we teach slowing down and drawing. So I hope everyone has a great time today and this weekend. And I'll be back here on Monday with a slowing down discussion. And would love to know about if you take time to reflect, if that's part of your process, how you incorporate into your work, into your day, into your teaching practice. like I said, I think it's a core aspect of this whole practice of creativity and drawing. So anyway, have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining me here today. Take care.